Decoding creativity. Are we building tools or replacing the artist? I want you to imagine something simple. A quiet room. A screen glowing softly in the dark. No applause. No gallery walls. No audience yet. The first line of code. Just a cursor blinking. In the last 2 years, that blinking cursor has learned to paint, compose music, write poetry, design buildings, and mimic voices. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't doubt itself. And it never asks why. For the first time in human history, creativity, once our most intimate signature, has become executable. And that raises a question that isn't technical at all. It's deeply human. When we write code that creates, are we building tools, or are we quietly outsourcing the very act of being an artist? This isn't a story about fear, it's a story about awareness. Algorithms no longer just process information, they quietly rewrite identity, labor, and meaning. In their reflection, we begin to recognize and question who we are becoming. Take a breath. We're going to move slowly, because this isn't about the future. It's about what's already happening inside the mind. The old myth of the artist. The artist is the creator of beautiful things. Oscar Wilde. For most of history, creativity was scarce. A painting took months. A symphony demanded years. A novel required solitude, obsession, and failure. Scarcity gave art its gravity. Neuroscience tells us why this mattered. Creative work lights up the brain as a whole. Imagination drifting freely. Structure shaping thought. And emotion binding meaning to memory. It is not one process, but a conversation between many minds inside the mind. Creativity wasn't just output. It was integration. The artist wasn't someone who made things faster. They were someone who felt longer, but code doesn't feel. It optimizes. When generative models recombine billions of examples, they bypass the slow, emotionally expensive pathways of human creation. They don't suffer creative doubt. They don't attach identity to output. And that's where the myth begins to crack. Because if creativity can be generated without inner experience, was creativity ever about experience at all? When creativity became computational. The question of whether a computer can think is no more interesting than the question of whether a submarine can swim. Edsger Dijkstra. Modern generative AI doesn't create the way humans do. It predicts. Under the hood are probabilistic models. Transformer architectures that calculate the most likely next token, pixel, or note based on vast statistical patterns. From a cognitive science perspective, this mirrors one uncomfortable truth. Human creativity is also predictive. Our brains constantly simulate outcomes. We remix memory. We borrow patterns. We hallucinate futures. The difference is embodiment. Humans create while tired, anxious, hopeful, distracted. We create with skin in the game. Code doesn't. So when machines produce art indistinguishable from ours, it forces an uncomfortable realization. What we thought was magic may have always been structure. And structure is programmable. The illusion of originality. Nothing is more original than originality itself, which is mostly forgetting where things came from. Friedrich Nietzsche. Psychology has long known that originality is partly a myth. Studies on creativity show that innovation often comes from remote association, connecting distant ideas stored in memory. AI does this at scale, but here's the fracture point. When a human creates, originality feels personal because it's entangled with identity. When a machine generates, originality becomes anonymous. No childhood, no cultural wound, no longing. And yet, the output still moves us. This creates cognitive dissonance. If meaning can be triggered without a meaning maker, where does authorship live? In the creator, the tool, or the mind of the observer? Tools that change the hand. We shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us. Marshall McLuhan. Every creative tool has changed creativity itself. The camera didn't kill painting, it redefined it. The synthesizer didn't end music, it rewired sound. Generative AI is different because it doesn't extend the hand. It extends the decision. Cognitive load studies show that when decision-making is offloaded, skill atrophies. Not immediately, subtly, choice by choice. When prompts replace practice, the artist shifts from maker to curator. From doing to directing. This isn't inherently bad, but it's transformative. The question becomes, are we training machines? Or are machines training us to think differently about effort, authorship, and value? Creative labor in the age of automation. What we call progress is the exchange of one nuisance for another. Havelock, Ellis. Economically, creativity was once protected by difficulty. Now it's scalable. In labor psychology, meaning is deeply tied to effort. When effort is removed, value perception collapses. This is known as effort justification bias. We value what costs us something. When AI generates in seconds what took humans years, markets recalibrate brutally. Writers compete with models. Designers compete with prompts. Artists compete with infinite variations. But the deeper loss isn't income. It's identity, because many people didn't just do creative work. They were the work. And when output detaches from self, existential friction appears. The mirror without a face. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Jung believed creativity was the psyche speaking to itself. Art as individuation, But what happens when the mirror reflects something that has no psyche? Generative AI produces artifacts without inattention. No shadow, no unconscious. Yet humans project meaning onto it anyway. A phenomenon cognitive scientists call intentional stance bias. We assume agency where patterns exist. The danger isn't that machines become artists. It's that humans forget why they were. When speed replaces depth. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself. And you are the easiest person to fool. Richard Feynman. Speed feels like progress. But neuroscience warns us, deep understanding requires friction. Fast creation short-circuits reflection. When iteration becomes instant, contemplation disappears. We generate more, but digest less. This leads to what psychologists call cognitive saturation: too much output, too little integration. The result isn't enlightenment. It's noise. Code as a creative partner. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Alan Turing. Not replacement. Not competition. Partnership. When used consciously, generative systems act like externalized imagination. A sandbox for possibility. They reveal patterns we didn't see. They challenge aesthetic habits. They expose creative blind spots. The key variable isn't intelligence. It's intentional use. Tools amplify direction. They don't supply it. The ethics of authorship. We are responsible for what we make, even if we do not fully understand it. Hannah Arendt. Who owns generated art? The coder, the prompter, the dataset. The culture it learned from? Philosophically, authorship has always been collective. We just pretended otherwise. AI makes that visible. But visibility demands ethics, transparency, acknowledgement. Otherwise, creativity becomes extraction, not expression. Reclaiming the human signal. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. Pablo Picasso. What remains human is not output. It's intention, taste, judgment, restraint. Human creativity is not about making more. It's about choosing what matters. In a world of infinite generation, curation becomes character. The future is a question, not a feature. The real problem is not whether machines think, but whether men do. B.F. Skinner. Generative AI isn't the end of creativity. It's a stress test. It reveals what we valued without realizing it. Effort, struggle, meaning, selfhood. And it asks us to answer, consciously. Are we creators, or consumers of our own automation? The line we still write. The code will keep improving. the outputs will keep getting better. But the final authorship still lives somewhere else. In the human decision to care, to pause, to choose depth over speed, meaning over volume. Creativity was never just about making things. It was about making sense of being alive. And no algorithm can do that for us. This is Decode Code, where we uncover the hidden patterns, unseen costs, and scientific forces shaping the mind in the digital age. Thanks for your time. It's been a delight. What should we explore next? Comment, share, and save your insight. Subscribe to Orbital Reads and keep your thoughts bright.